Welcome back once again for the third installment of a vidcast that I was very fortunate to film with Aditya Junjunwala, Kay Solanki and Adele Hartland. And in this really fascinating excerpt of our conversation, we look at some really different mindsets around coaching for companies of the future. And in particular, we look at some of the elements of human design thinking, succession planning, AI, and what this all means for the humans of the future in the companies of the future. I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Look forward to hearing your feedback. I'm going to hand back to Adi here. What do you think are going to be the defining characteristics of teams in the future?
Well, you're asking me to look into a crystal ball. I don't know if I
Yeah.
have one. I think one of the things that I definitely see happening, and I see a lot of people talking about, is even larger organizations working in small clusters of teams where, there is more clarity, there is freedom to, take decisions, and clusters are obviously aligned towards business goals and, department goals and strategic initiatives and things like that. So you need the kind of mindset to take jobs or take tasks and break them down into repeatable, things that can be automated into an algorithm, repeated, build a system around that. And then I think the human skill is really about understanding where innovation can come from and understanding, the unique qualities and mindset that people bring to the table. But I think with automation and AI and human skills are going to become even more important.
The challenge that I see with that, and I'm going to hand to Adele again in a second, is as the machines get more prominent, our humanity and our development of our human skills is going to be even more essential. But the problem is, we've now got a couple of generations or sub generations of kids who developed their communication skills by doing this. So, how are they going to be the leaders of the future if they communicate in bits and bytes? What are your thoughts on that, Adele?
Yeah, that's probably a whole nother conversation, really, if we think about the younger generation. And I mean, I definitely think there's been some impact on it. I mean, growing up, think about growing up in a video game. I mean, in essence, we that's what we're doing. But I think there's limitations on expressing emotions, and so this whole emotional intelligence that we're talking about might be stunted in some areas. That we're gonna have to wait and see with that. But I do see a lot more companies now putting emphasis on those people skills and developing. Because for me, AI should be about efficiency, making things work a little bit better, a little bit easier, not having to work as hard, basically. But it should then give us time to do more to develop as a human being.
I love the beauty of the idea. I just know that there will just be a stack of people who will work their asses off and still happily work 70 hours and out 70 hours a week and outcompete everyone, because I think that's a bit
well
more...
that's how they designed, and that's their choice, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's their choice. I'm happy to work and live and be.
Indeed, I'm with you there. Kay, what do you see in terms of that teams of the future and the AI and the EI crossover as you're looking at succession planning, particularly across generations? What sort of tensions do you see there?
AI is going to create efficiencies. I talk about succession thinking and organizational design. There's a real opportunity here to go, we talked about DISC, personality profiling, and all of that can come into play. Because if you understand the people and the dynamics of the person, and you understand, what AI can do, you look at the work in its holistic form, and what part of this goes to the AI, what part of this stays with the human, what do we need, or who do we need to create the connection in between, right? And then you place people in, you get to know their psychometric preferences or their behavioral preferences, and you create the roles and do the role design according to that. Because then you're going to create a longevity of infrastructure for a business if you do that kind of stuff, right? And I see people like us who are coaches, we're going to be needed even more than we are currently, because building, how do you make the humans and the machines work together, and how do you navigate the machine part of this business and the human part of this business? Whereas, I'd say the older guys are used to, working with systems and processes, where the younger guys, they like creativity and fluidity and things like that. Why I'm saying to you, understanding the human and your personality profiling tools that we have, they will become more to the fore, because you'll be working at creating design of a business based on people, not so much on what the end result needs to be, or what the goals of a small dominant group of people in this business are. It's innovative thinking, right? But it takes effort. And I think it's going to be a very evolving thing because AI is evolving at a rapid pace. But I think it's a real opportunity, especially for a certain size business that's stuck right in the middle, to innovate in the way they create the design of it.
Adi and I have spoken a bit about the design of companies in the future, that, you know, if you were to blueprint a company from scratch now, you start with the tech. You work out what you can automate the crap out of, and then how many people do I really need now to run it, which is, again, a whole new other conversation. But Adele, you're quite into the behavioral assessment aspect, and with your 5 A's for the individuals that works for the teamwork, understanding the behavioral tendencies of a team as we move into this. I think we're technically in the AI era now, aren't we? Or are we just on the shoulder of it? As we go forward in the future, and as we start building these companies and these teams of the future who will, at their core, have AI as part of what they do, how do you go around assessing people to find the right people to work with the machines in the future organizational setup?
Oh, I think there's so much that we've got now that we can use. I mean, I use human design now a lot, which is fantastic.
All right, we're going to need human design because this gets people going. So human design, Adele, go.
A lot of people have a job spec, but it's really important to have a personal spec. And so now when you're designing it and going, okay, well, right, AI does that. Okay, but what's the personal spec? What do we need from someone? What, you know, if someone's naturally playing to their strengths, doing what naturally they enjoy or that comes natural to them, how much happier would the world be? Let's be honest. You know, I look at just the difference it makes with a team when we do a DISC behavioral workshop. I mean, people, first of all, love to know about themselves. We love to know about ourselves. We don't know enough about ourselves. So the more people learn about that, and then we start understanding the differences, because we do sometimes have an assumption that we're all the same when we're absolutely not. I mean, I've seen teams open up tremendously just by having a workshop. And then a lot of time, considered time, where we decide what are the behaviors? How are we deciding what is important to us? What does that mean to us? Like, what are our values? So we have that collective buy-in. And then it's about implementing that and creating those neural pathways, and that you create a culture. If you don't do anything about it, it creates itself, and that's when you've got problems. It has to be something that gets created through like strategic choice.
Who makes the choice about the formation of the new culture?
When I work with companies, the first thing I'll say to them is like, right, what needs to change? What needs to change here? What's really important? What are the things that are really important for you? Everybody gives a chance. So everybody's had a bit of a collective buy-in. So they've all had a say. But if everybody's had a say, then we decide what are the final things. Okay, what are the really important things that we all agree? What are the things that we really want to change? And what are we going to do now to make those changes? And everybody starts taking a step. It's like, okay, well, you said this is really important to you. What are you going to do to make that change?
We've now got our next 18 podcasts of material and prompting points ready to go with. Kay, when you see organizations going through this process of setting culture, or more specifically, the cultural evolution or revolution in succession planning, who decides the new culture then? Or do they wait until the parents are gone and then just set the culture the way the kids want? How does it work?
When we go about succession thinking and creating the framework for that, everybody in today's business gets involved. What is the ultimate vision of the owners of this business? And that's what drives the behaviors within the organization. So once you understand what the vision is, you understand what the values are of the organization, and the values are the biggest driver of culture. Everyone in the business gets to say, what does good look like for us? And when we get to bear, who's going to call it out? And how do we all agree that we accept that people call it out? And then we do something about this, right? It becomes a not natural way of doing things within the business. And it's the leader as well as the person who comes and does all the cleaning. They all abide by the same rules when it comes to the culture of the business. So we have tools, a tech platform that helps them keep culture on track. So in a traditional organization, you might have performance management. Here, we say to them, you have peer catch-ups. So if me and you were in two different teams, every now and again, every quarter, I'd have a peer catch-up with you to assess the health of the culture of our work, our team, our business. And then you do that across different functions. And it's all documented. And you can track that quarter by quarter on how well culture is developing as a metric.
Wow. That you can track the evolution of something as subjective as culture.
Based on the common agreement of for instance, we're looking at the behaviors and the values of the values and behaviors together. They form a basis of the culture and how we then perform to those, right? In the team, as individuals, as leaders. And we talk about this, and then it gets measured, and we score each other on these things.
That's really fantastic.
Your
First time I've
values,
heard of something like that.
behaviors are a tangible expression of your behavior, of your values,
Yeah.
as opposed to just a word on the wall, which I've seen many companies just have
Yeah.
values
So
as words on.
use those values as a benchmark to assess performance. And we have a tech platform that allows businesses to do this, and they track that year on year. They can see how their culture is tracking. And that's the unique thing about, I'm talking about succession systems. If I was going to buy one of these businesses, I can show a buyer that my business has great culture. And my people are telling me, because they're the ones who are telling me this.
Wow. Hey, Adi, this sounds as new to you as it does to me, or are you a bit more across this than I am?
No, this is fantastic. I mean, I'm loving what you're saying, and the fact that you can kind of put a metric to it. What's made sense to me, in terms of thinking of culture is, how predictable as a group of people, given a situation, do you know what the response would be? If someone behaves in a certain way, can you say with a certain degree of certainty that, look, the leader is going to behave in this way, and this is how a team would respond to a situation like this. This is how we would deal with it. And I think that the more clear it is and the more predictable it is, I think the more clear the culture is in a way. And the fact that you're talking about a tech platform that can measure that, that's fantastic.
That's quite blown me away, that one there. Adele, is there anything that you would like to add to that or put in as a bit of a closer before we move on?
Culture and behavior is essential. I mean, like, how many times have they told you culture each strategy for business every day? And I think with AI and with the way we want businesses to be, like if we want a sustainable business, and I mean, you can check some of the stats with Deloitte and stuff like that, where you are 8 times more successful. People first, profit second. If you focus as people focused first, there's such a difference in the business because people are happy. You're tapping into each of their individual neurological motivators, which is very important now with Gen Z and your millennials. They want more they want to make a difference. They want to contribute. So I think understanding that and understanding how we work as a human being now is essential for a business to be sustainable.
And Adi, how do you go about building that into your entrepreneurs of the future?
I don't know how, if we build that into them, but I think one of the questions that I like to ask as a coach, and when working with groups of people, who want to be entrepreneurs, is the question that, what's your pain? The desire to remove a pain or the desire to run away from a pain is I think where the motive force comes for an entrepreneur, because we're all trying to do something, right? You spoke about the why, you spoke about intent, and we spoke about purpose, but it's all us trying to change something in our life. It's all us trying to change something in others' lives that we face and we probably don't want to face again, or we don't want them to face again. I think that's the question that has always worked for me. For example, I work with young people, and we're building systems and education around entrepreneurial mindset. And I think the pain for me was the time that I spent as a young person in college, in my college life, that I felt was wasted time. I felt frustrated. And what I'm trying to do is trying to, get rid of that frustration and build education so that other young people don't face that frustration. It's something very personal that every budding entrepreneur needs to look into their own life and try to find what is it that has pained them, or what is it that they want to kind of make sure that others don't feel that pain. And to answer your question, I think that's the question that I find helps people to find their source or their direction. I don't know if that answers your question, but
I think if you're answering a question with a question and you've gone with something as prophetic as that, I know I'm not going to be able to top that as a finisher. And with that one, I can't thank you all enough for what was a really enjoyable chat. So thank you all very much. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you next time.